Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of How Did We Get Here? Better than your averages, the channel and the movement. How Did We Get Here is the show. I'm your boy Jay Carter. My man that is always heard and never seen, Skeens, is directing and executive producing today. Off cam as usual. But we do have a special guest in our home studio, a man that I love and admire and have been told that I look a lot alike. My dad, Jeffrey Carter Sr. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, doing well.
Welcome to the show, sir. Welcome. So, the fam is in town. You guys, well, first and foremost, love, peace, and blessings to everybody. Much love, of course. And the fam is in town for a few days. We hadn't seen each other since December, since all the corona, stuff jumped off and everything. So it was my little sister's birthday and, came in town for a few days. So me and Skeens were talking and we thought it would be a perfect time to sit down with one of the elder statesmen of and get some of his perspective and really just kind of see his journey and his process, coming from where he came from and being a big impact on all of us in the family and everything, and just a Father's Day, father and son sitting down and having some dialogue. So everybody give him a round of applause from wherever you watching and stuff like that. But oh, wait a minute. I forgot what my round of applause is. So round of applause for Pop. So, sir, we're gonna get right into it. I want to start at the beginning of your journey, your process, and where I know, but for the audience, where were you born? Where did it all start for you?
I was born in the town of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, 1961.
61. He will be 59 in a matter of a couple, 2-3 days, couple weeks. You'll be 59 years old. So, I wanted to start and talk about kind of the dynamic. What was the family dynamic that you were raised in, that you came in from, and a rough estimate of the brothers and sisters, and that whole thing.
I was born into the dynamic, a single mom household, and I was the next in that before my mom remarried my stepdad. I was the next to the baby in that family.
Right. Okay.
But always learning and understanding that dynamic of a single mom. I always had what my mom said was a old mentality, so to speak.
Okay.
So, I wasn't one of those kids that kind of pulled and was needy for a whole lot of things like that.
I get told the same thing, that I'm already old, even though I'm getting old, but people tell me that I'm old, by the way I move was old. But I mean, I guess I got that from you, some of that old movement. So
maybe,
yeah.
But I grew up in a time when neighborhoods in the village was a real village,
right? Mm-hmm.
Where neighbors and other parents really lifted one another up and helped raise children. They disciplined their kids,
right?
So it wasn't a thing to where you were really out there on your own. They really helped one another out as far as raising the children in the neighborhood there.
I wanted to ask you too. I know, without you having, coming from the single mother household, did you ever have that thing in you where you felt like you were looking for that fatherly example or fatherly figure and you couldn't find it, or did you find it more in your brothers and, like you said, from the village, so to speak?
There were some men in the neighborhood. Right next door, there was Mr. Armstrong. We called him Mr. JW. There was also Mr. Johnson. But I got a lot of that from my elder brothers. You know, they, especially Napoleon, Wayne, uh, they kind of took me under their wing a little bit. Would spend a little time with me, so I got uh, that from those gentlemen in the neighborhood, but also those two brothers. Napoleon, even on up into my teenage years, uh, him and I spent time together, and Wayne and I spent time, fishing or whatever. But I
Right.
had those examples and those role models in my life coming up as a young boy in a single mom neighbor family.
Right.
Now, my mom remarried, and we moved from the west side of Pine Bluff. We moved to the north side, and my stepdad, we were only in that environment where we had a father figure in the home.
Mm-hmm.
We were only in that environment for uh, roughly 5-6 years, and then he was killed.
Mm-hmm.
So we still went back into that single
Mm-hmm.
mom dynamic, and I was still a young boy at that time.
What do you think? Where did you get your? So we'll spin it forward a little bit. So you're in Pine Bluff, born and raised. You meet this wonderful lady that is off camera that you've been married to for 40 years, getting ready to go on 41 years. So high school sweethearts, that whole wonderful, love story. But what was your, what were you pulling from as far as you get married at such a young age? Because you were 18, mom was 17, correct?
Correct.
So what were you pulling from as far as your frame of reference of how to even be a husband?
Really,
You didn't have, or did you not have one?
At that point in time, Jay, I didn't have a reference. Really, you saw very few two-parent households, or I won't say you saw very few, but I didn't have those that played out that marital example in front of me.
Right.
So I didn't really have a point of reference to pull from that. But it was mostly, you seeing a cute girl and you want to go after her, right?
Right. I got
And really, being honest, that's
Yeah,
what it was. I saw her, she was cute, she was fine, and
yeah.
and
Whatever. If y'all can see what she's doing over here.
so
Well, one of the favorite stories is when you first saw Ma in the neighborhood. What was the? You asked her something funny when you saw her.
I was next door. I think I was they should moved in next door to the Colemans, and I asked her what kind of extracurricular activities did she get into, something like that,
Right.
calling myself, spitting something crazy,
Right.
but that kind of thing.
Right. And what
Well,
extracurricular stuff was you involved in? Boy, just shooting, boy.
yeah, so it was that kind of thing.
He himself was not involved in anything. Nah, that's a cool story. So, one more question though. So, if you can go back just a little bit, when you making that decision to get married, what is your thought? You know what I'm saying? Are you really thinking about it, or you just well, we're gonna get married?
What had happened, I think back about that. I've had that thought, what was really going on in my mind. But after I met your mom, we spent, we spent every day together, and,
You're
and I
making
was,
me sick.
and I didn't get, I didn't think about it as really as in depth as I should have. But
Right.
I was thinking, I want to be with her the rest of my life.
Wow.
I was thinking that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, but I didn't really think about what all that entailed.
What came with it,
and
right.
the responsibilities of,
Not at 18 for sure.
Not at 18.
Yeah,
what
for
I'm
sure.
saying? I didn't think about all that entails. So, but yeah, I wanted to get married and I wanted to be with her, but I just didn't really think about all that it entailed as far as providing and, putting in the work that marriage required and those type of things. So, it took a whole bunch of work.
Well, we're gonna go forward, but just to take a pause on that because what I want to touch on is then you transition into the military, and we'll go from there. But you know the climate that we in right now, I think we have to talk about it some. Is that you guys came from an environment in the deep South, and born in the '60s, growing up in the '70s, et cetera, et cetera. What was the climate like racially in Pine Bluff at that time?
Actually, at that time in Pine Bluff for me, and your mom may have a different, vibe or story behind it. For me, it wasn't that tense.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I went to elementary school. I started out at different schools there, but I'll start at Carver Elementary, and it was a mixed school.
Okay.
And, from there I went to high school, junior high, and high school, and it was still mixed. But even in elementary school, we still had that diverse dynamic of race, black, white. We played basketball, football with them.
Mm-hmm.
And very rarely were there any altercations from a racial perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this because you black and I'm white, that type of thing.
Got you.
Now, it may have been just like you see in today's times, or I won't say today's times, but when you hear, for example, when they talk about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, the people didn't talk about it.
Okay.
So if it was really happening to that extent, a lot of the adults didn't talk about it to the children.
Okay.
And it's kind of just like now,
Mm-hmm.
if the adults don't pull the kids into looking at it from that perspective, the kids are out playing and doing
Right. Yeah,
so that's how it came off for me,
Mm-hmm.
And even when I went on up, I worked as a correctional officer
Right. Yep.
in the prison system before I went into the military. Caucasian folks took care of me. I actually got promoted and stuff ahead of time.
Right.
So
right.
I didn't feel any of that things that would have been racial.
Right.
Had a racial effect on my life behind it. I happened to be one that it worked out fine for, and I think too, I moved, as young fellas like to call it, moving. I moved a little different.
Gotcha.
So I had a different type of interaction with whites, Caucasians. I had a different interaction with them, so I didn't feel any of that racial things. Now, I could think of some things in high school that could have been racial, but it may have been more just we was from another side of town and we got into some things with some Caucasians. I don't know if it was a racial aspect behind it.
Right, and I think would you attribute a lot of that to Mud Ear and how she moved and was kind of everybody loved her kind of person, and that's kind of how we, our whole family is kind of that way. You know what I mean?
Right. And that was the thing. My mom, she did her thing. She cooked at different type of overnight restaurants or breakfast places, and they were frequented by Caucasian people. And so a lot of folks knew her. And I think I was sharing with you one night, that was the only time I ever been pulled over.
Oh, yeah.
But I had just dropped her off, and I had a 69 GTO. And I turned the corner, and I lit up the tires, and the police pulled me over on Hazel, right across from Jenkins. And they did have their guns out, but when they asked me where I was coming from, I said I just dropped my mom off at the snack shop. And they asked who my mom was, and I said, Miss Ree, and he said, "Oh, Miss Ree, your mom?" And they let me go right. But it had been why they pulled me over. It was that there had been a robbery or something. They was looking, I was speeding in that area, so they thought I could have had something to do with that.
Right.
But so it was that thing. A lot of people knew her from working at several restaurants around town there.
Yeah. And because I thought about that because, y'all, in Arkansas is when they first integrated schools, you know what I mean?
Right.
And stuff like that. And I know Ma has memories of of some of that kind of stuff. But now, Muddy, what did she do for the majority of the time? Was it like that same kind of? Because I remember as a kid going to. There was a hotel that we would pick her up from sometimes. She was still working.
She still cooked in that
Oh,
hotel.
okay. I never knew as a kid what she did.
She still
but
cooked in that hotel, and then at
I do remember picking her up at night though, like
some point,
something like that. But
some point she would sit with people,
Okay.
Again, and those would even be, how they had people that sit with white families, the elderly people, that type of thing. But most of her time was spent cooking.
Okay. So, born and raised Pine Bluff, Arkansas. You meet this wonderful woman. Y'all get married, and then you make a decision to go into the military. But what was the catalyst that made you make that decision?
Well, the catalyst for going into the military was, again, not thinking about the full responsibility of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Marriage wasn't going well, and we needed a quick out.
Right.
We needed a quick out. I think if it hadn't have been for the military, we probably would have split.
Yeah, I always remember you told me that. Yeah.
And we needed a quick out. I went into the military in a matter of about 21 days.
Okay.
21 days from, enlistment to, going, being
Right.
shipped off to.
Wow, I didn't know it was that
Missouri,
quick. Okay.
Because it was quick. It was quick. 'Cause, other than that, we probably wouldn't be here coming up on our 41st anniversary. So
Right.
that was the catalyst that we were in that 2 year, how they say that tough 2 years of
Oh yeah.
marriage. The
Well,
first
it's
2 years.
like we always talk about, you guys, and we all go through it. Is just, like you said, you're in this torrid love that you have, and it's extremely young, and what I call, like Beyonce said, drunken love. But then, you get married and it's wonderful. But then, like we always talk about, the work phase begins.
Exactly.
And once the work phase begins, it's a make or break point of, am I going to stick and stay, or am I going to bail out of this thing?
Right.
So you made the decision to go into the military, and we went from, because again, I always, represent and talk about Pine Bluff and our whole family being from there, but I didn't really spend that time there like Skeens did, or like, anybody else.
Right.
My time there I was extremely young. So from there, we went from Pine Bluff. You did basic in Fort Leonard Wood.
Missouri.
Then we went Fort Gordon.
Fort Gordon for AIT, and then Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay, Fort Benning.
Right.
And then I have we traveled to, the country boy from Pine Bluff is in Vicenza, Italy.
Exactly.
Now, did you have any fear about going out of the country, or?
I did. I did.
Okay, yeah.
And, for the most part, I've been one of those kind of guys. I'm not,
Yeah.
hey, I'm willing to try something new like that. So
Right.
I actually put Italy as one of the places I wanted to go
Oh, okay.
on what they call in the military a dream sheet.
Right. Yep.
Right. I put that on there,
Okay.
so I
Okay.
felt like that was, favor for me being able to go there.
Right. So we go to Italy, and believe it or not, y'all, some of y'all know I have a little bit of memory from Italy, and they did a good job with pictures and different things. I remember there's a chair over there that I had as a kid, but I used to speak fluent Italian. I spent that time over there. So I always tell people that I was thankful too that you went into the military, because it did broaden my horizon so much, and I just saw the world a different way. And it started there. And then we came to Texas.
Exactly.
And
Fort Hood.
Fort Hood, Texas, first in the little town right outside called Coppers Cove. Then we moved on base. So this military brat thing has been my entire existence, even with me working in the military now. And then we transitioned from Fort Hood to
Germany.
back to Germany. Well, not back, but to Germany, back to Europe, I mean to say. and then we came back to Texas and settled, and some other things transpired in between there. But in your military career, what would you? We've talked about this, but what did it do for you as far as what kind of leader were you? Because I feel like you had a pretty good military career.
Right.
Now, what kind of leader were you of those men and women when you did 20 years in the military? Mm-hmm. And what was your leadership style and stuff like that?
Well, I think with anybody in the military, the leadership style comes from understanding human behavior.
Okay. What do you mean when you say that?
When you got to know who you lead it.
Okay.
So your leadership style is motivated based on that soldier you're leading. It's like, for example, you used to say, you'd hear me, if somebody came by the house, I'd deal with certain guys a different way.
Right.
I was forceful when I needed to be forceful, and then finesse when I needed to use finesse. Mm-hmm. But I would say my ultimate leadership style is one I didn't have to be forceful, because I knew how to get what I needed done by talking to somebody without being forceful, meaning that I could get them to understand the importance of what we needed to be done,
Mm-hmm.
And so I never had to be forceful that much or that often, but there were times when I had to be, but that wasn't my ultimate style. I never wanted to be led that way when I was a young soldier, so that wasn't the way that I used, and so that's the type of leader I was. I could talk to a soldier and explain why we need to do what we need to do, and they could do it. Mm-hmm. And also, if you can keep a soldier understanding that you're always looking out for their best, they're more than willing to do what you ask them to do. So you don't have to be a what they call a hard leader.
Right.
So many people see the hard drill sergeant picture of the military.
Right, indeed.
Yelling and screaming, so they think that's the way you
one-dimensional leadership, though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you don't have to be that way the majority of the time. So
what was that little speech you used to give? They used to ask you to get.
You talk which one? When you got to work hard?
Right.
Oh no, that was just some. I think my Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. He's talking about. I used to have a speech say, people that's been in the military, you have what they call a RTAP, which is a Army Readiness Training Evaluation Program. And I used to tell my soldiers, I'd say, hey, this is the fourth quarter, it's 7 minutes left and we down by 17 and we still gonna win, and it's time to get funky like a monkey. That's what Dusty Rhodes used to say, and he was one of my favorite wrestlers, because he didn't look like he'd go to the gym or anything. He just looked like one of them tough barroom type guys. And so I would use that, and that would be the motivational speech for my soldiers when we were out doing any kind of evaluation program or maneuver that was a high visibility type thing or something like that.
Okay. So I want to touch on, go back to you and the transition you guys made. And then I want to move forward and just talk about, your kids and, how you moved through that. But so at one point, again, going back, when you went into the military, you and Mom were at a make or break point. So again, you go into the military, and just for those people that might be there or have been in that position, where do you think the change was, or what steps kind of led you guys to be successful in marriage?
Well, I think, going into the military put us in an environment. For one thing, it took us out of what was familiar, Pine Bluff, relatives around, old girlfriends, old boyfriends, whatever.
Right.
It took you where you didn't have all that. And so all of a sudden we're thrust into an environment where we got to depend more on one another.
On each other.
You're going into an environment where actually you don't even have friends yet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's just you two. And then we started to realize how much we needed one another. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're better together.
There you go.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So
Mm-hmm.
that was in am I, you know, I'm not here saying that happened right away. You know, when we
Right.
first got into the military, we still had
Right.
some
Mhm.
struggles there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it took us a while. You know, and most people, when you're honest about being married, it doesn't take, you know, even when you at 40 years, it can still, if you don't have uh, a certain resolve about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, or what you're not going to accept in your relationship, that can flare up in just a minute, you know,
Yeah.
at any point in a
Any
relationship.
point. Right.
Any point. So, but yeah, I'd say probably when we really, you know, we were only at Fort Benning, you know, 13,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 15 months.
Right.
And then we went to Vicenza, Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think once we got over there, that's really when it started really sinking
Okay.
with one another. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
it, say, Fort Benning, Georgia versus Vicenza, Italy, is really, you still away from family and relatives, but when you go across the water, you feel like, hey, I'm even in a more distant place.
Right.
And I need this person even more than
Right.
I did before. So I'd say in that, you know, we went to Italy in 1983. So, you know,
Mhm.
83 to 86 was that time frame. So in that window there, that's when we really decided, things decided to really click and get better for the relationship. And, you know, also during that Italy time, we had started back to getting back into church and stuff like that. So that made a huge difference in that.
Perfect segue. So, when we went from from Italy to Texas, and you know, me and mom started going to Christian House of Prayer, but your transition there was a little slower.
Exactly.
I can remember going to church on Sundays, and you was at the house.
Right. Right.
So-
Yeah.
So, what was your initial struggle with that piece? Because I mean, you always, you know, you came from a family that went to church, and Uncle Jesse was, in that area, and in many ways famous for being a church musician and all that, and mom sang in church and all that. So,
Right.
what was your? What was the struggle? Why didn't you adopt that wanting to go to church and raise the family kind of that way, and lead the family in that way?
At that point, I was still kind of doing that military, that soldier thing, doing a little sipping and
Right.
that type of thing, and I wasn't
She'll pull that.
putting that much. I didn't really think about it that much.
Right.
I kind of let her. To be honest, I kind of just let her go, and you all went, and I kind of just, in that during that time frame, I had more of that provider type
Right, that's-
mindset. Providing for the family, which I was doing, and
Right.
that was my mindset about it. I didn't give a whole lot of thought to that. And you're right, cause that was, like you say, in '86 we got back to Fort Hood,
Mm-hmm.
and it was 1991 April.
Right.
1990. Now I think I went to church a couple of times.
Right.
No, I don't even, maybe 1 or 2 times. It was very rare, even if that.
Mom
But
said she's shaking
it may
her
not
head.
even been that amount. But I'm thinking I might have. I don't know if I went to Chop or if I went maybe with somebody else. I don't know. But anyway,
Right.
what I'm saying is it was April 1990.
Mm-hmm.
I deployed to the desert in September
Mm-hmm.
of 90.
Now, so
Yeah.
September of 1990.
Right.
What were your? Now I can remember as a kid sitting in my room on Fort Hood when we stayed on post, and I can remember seeing, like, I can't remember what news network it was, but like, they're going to war, and they were showing soldiers, and I'm like, yo, my dad is going to war, like. But in that moment, did you have any, was your anxiety up or anything?
Slightly.
Okay.
And slightly. And that takes me back to my brother Napoleon.
Mm-hmm.
And, he got drafted. And that was one of the reasons I didn't go into the military straight after high school, because still needed to give some thought to that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the way I got back to that point, I still had given thought to it and understood it. But he always told me the ultimate reason for the military.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying, you can go in for provision and a job and that, but the
Right.
ultimate reason is one day to go somewhere and fight.
Wow. Yeah.
So I thought back about that.
Yeah.
Even when I was like, here it is.
Yeah,
the reason,
yeah.
You join.
Yeah.
And so that was my mindset. But yeah, I still thought about those things
Mm-hmm.
as far as saying, this is getting ready to get real right now.
Right.
So that's the way I was thinking about that. So that was during that time.
So you went to the desert,
Right.
and was there a moment of transfiguration? What was this?
So-
what happened there that
So
put you where you needed to be?
So there, believe it or not, I was on what they call a radio. I hear myself.
Okay, you good. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was on a radio repeater site, and
What is that?
it takes a transmission signal. Say for example, if you want to put it into anything, it takes a radio signal in one antenna and out another one.
Okay.
It's boosting that signal.
Okay.
But anyway, during that time, they had started sending tapes from Christian House of Prayer.
Okay.
And I had started listening to Bishop Holcomb.
Mm-hmm.
And even during that time in the desert, I accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior during that time. But I was like, well, when I get back, I'm going to do this thing, officially.
Right, I got
at
you.
the church. But anyway, I was learning things by listening to those messages, and I had one site they had left us on. They didn't really leave us, but we had to stay there, and the main body had moved to another location. And we were out there, my guy, myself, Heverin, and then it was a guy, Sergeant Rosario. He was from Fort Bragg, and him and his two soldiers were there. But, it was just us five. And, we're saying, hey, man, granted, we wasn't on the front line at that time.
Right.
We was a few miles back off the border.
Okay.
And I remember, Bishop was talking about, the war and things like that, about how it wasn't going to be that long and all of that stuff. But I remember walking that perimeter because Heverin was a young soldier and he was a little scared,
Mm-hmm.
I remember walking that perimeter and praying around that whole perimeter that we were on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, laying a border right there.
Mm.
Wouldn't nothing happen to us.
Mm.
Because it wasn't a way for five guys to pull guard duty.
Right,
we tried to
right.
do something, but we
Right.
couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Trying to give, peace to the young guys' mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anyway, those tapes and that right there was where I had that transition,
Mm-hmm.
saying, hey, I'm going to serve the Lord from now on. And that's what I've been doing since that time.
Right. Right.
So I
Now,
came, go ahead.
When you said you accepted Jesus over there, was it with somebody or who? What was that process? It was just kind of a moment to yourself, or
It was a moment of listening to
Bishop.
one of those messages.
Wow, okay.
It's the same as you looking at, Bishop on TV. It's
Okay,
the same
yeah,
as
I never asked you that before.
They leave you,
Okay.
they give you that. But like I say, when I got back in April,
Mhm.
I did it officially
right?
with Bishop McMillan.
Yep.
He was the counselor,
Yep.
that led me officially through it once I got to the church.
Yeah, and real quick, I know we salute to the and always want to pay homage to the late great Bishop Holcomb, but when he passed, I remember that I never forget it when you and I were sharing some thoughts and stuff about him. But you said, and I quote, that he was a game changer for you. And I know you said when you came down that he was saying that something to the effect that your wife had this whole church praying for you.
Yeah. He said your wife had everybody in this church praying for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hit that real quick because a lot of people that know me and know how I am about my faith and about my family, you know, and how my how much I admired and looked up to Bishop is, and it literally was trickled down from my mother and father all the way to me and to my wife, and so just salute to him. Now, once you got Cap back, you made that decision, to live a different life. I can remember you was all the way, because I came up, because here's a funny story. A lot of people, I came up like listening to quote unquote secular music and stuff. He was cool with it. He had every album in the world, but then once this dude made the decision, he was coming back burning albums and breaking them over his kneecap and all this kind of stuff like that. So I remember some of my friends I would listen to, the Henrys of the world and stuff would give me a little tape to listen to. Don't let your dad get this, man. Don't let your dad get my CD, man. So that's what I was telling cats, because I mean, as much as I love hip hop and stuff like that, I said I went through a lull where I was the inception of hip hop with the LL Cool J's and Kool Moe D's and Run DMC's and Houdinis, and then once Pop made that change, he was I couldn't listen to none of that stuff. And then I started listening to it more when I got to high school and stuff like that. So that part of it is funny. So you made that change, and I know one thing that people would ask me too is that, because your dad was in the military for 20 years, did he raise you militaristically? And you didn't army me, you know what I mean? You just kind of we spent a lot of time whether it was throwing the football, he would come out and throw it with the kids in the neighborhood, or taking me to the gym, he would shoot basketball, or going fishing, or showing me how to change the oil, and different things like that. You didn't raise me that way. I appreciated that. I think that trickled down to me with my leadership style and how I deal with people. I'm always trying to get on their level. Now, he did have some times he would trip. Now, I'm not gonna tell no specific. No, I'm gonna tell one story. So anybody that knows me, and again, not sitting here as like I didn't do anything, but one thing that y'all know about Jay is I never drank, never smoked a cigarette. You know what I'm saying? Nothing. No, definitely never smoked no weed. That just wasn't my vice or anything. So I used to work the late shift at a call center called Convergys. So I would literally work, from like 4 to 12:30 or something like that. I think it was. I was a training assistant, subject matter expert. So that was like a Friday night, and I would sleep in late, on Saturday. And at that time I was still staying with them, and I would, trying to maintain my clothes. When I would wash my clothes, I wouldn't dry all of them. Some of them I would hang up all over my room when I would do laundry. So that Saturday morning, I don't know what time it is, as he comes into my room, I had a shirt or something that was on the door handle. When he opened the door, it fell off, and like as the door opened, it slid the shirt or whatever it was. And without him talking to me, asking me anything, he starts calling for my mom. Bob, get in here quick. Jay been smoking weed. And mind y'all, I'm knocked out. Rapid eye movement sleep, REM sleep, and this dude is accusing me of getting high. And he always say, "Boy, I'm Dan Ted. I'm gonna find out what you do." He's always reference that. So I'm like, if I was gonna get high, it would not be anywhere around here, and I would you. But I'm like, and my mom comes in there, and I'm like, "Mom, I never smoked weed in my life," did it. And so she pushes it, but so those were the moments he tripped. But all that said, always appreciated that, that we always had the relationship of building. And I think early on in my childhood, you weren't going a lot, but I was around Mom more because, you were working and doing, I spent a lot of time with her, and, Mom helped me develop a level of communication. And then I think as I got older, of course, then our communication like went to another level to where it is now, where I could, I feel like I can, I consider you in my inner sanctum of like best friends as guys. You know what I'm saying? So now you got Brian, older brother. You got me. Then you got Haven, and you got Soraya.
Right.
So going back to the father's theme, you didn't have the frame of reference necessarily in seeing a father. So how did you navigate raising children of your own?
I didn't have the frame of reference in seeing a father, being in the house.
Mm-hmm.
There was Mr. Skinner.
Mm-hmm.
He was there. Mr. Mays, and you also had Julius Caesar. His dad was in the house, and
It was a cat named Julius Caesar?
yeah. But anyway, you had those points of reference, and you also had I had, my older brothers had kids.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them had kids, and I saw that. And even when you talk about that, I feel I did okay, but I feel like I missed a couple of good opportunities and stuff like that with my children. I think I've done a good job with my girls, and I did a good job with you. But I think with Brian, I being not a child that I had with Barbara, that I missed a whole bunch of opportunities with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I could have did better in that area.
How so though?
I feel like I didn't spend enough time with him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I didn't spend enough time with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, those type of things. Even with him, he and we talked about that, and I apologized for some things, and he said, "Man, I forgive you. You need to forgive yourself." So that was very big of him, and me and him now, we have a terrific relationship. We talk. I tease him because I say, "Man, every time I talk to you, my phone battery run out." But
yeah.
Going back to the original question, I think you can look back at what you feel like you missed in a relationship, in a family, and you can raise your children different based on that.
Right.
Looking at what you miss with by not having a father in the house, and you can draw on that and come up with the ways that you want to raise your children. So I think a lot of that came from that, not having a father immediately in the household as far as the point of reference for children. And then also talking, you were a little kid during the military time, and, talking to kids, guys my age. I call them kids, but, you talking about 20-year-olds, and you get to talk to some that were raised in households with two parents. And so my dad did this, and this, and some tell you what they liked about what their dad did and what they didn't like. So you learn from that. Those are your points of reference.
So I think one thing that me and Skeens talk about, and he talks about sometimes in different things he saw growing up, and you have to make we always talk about making the decision as men, that we got to put our families as a priority.
Yeah.
And that when I'm operating, to the best of my ability at my optimal point as a father and as a husband, that means I'm hitting my marks as being successful.
Exactly.
The other stuff, whether it was the military for you or other endeavors that you have, of course, that's extra. Right. But the number one priority and the goal is to make the family and that whole unit, my number one priority.
Exactly.
And so what you have to do is, I think you want to encourage people that you can overcome where you come from. You can make a decision to overcome those things, and you don't have to be what was done to you. You know what I'm saying? And you learn, like they say, that saying, you learn two things from people: what to do and what not to do.
Exactly.
You know, so you have to make that decision of what I want to do, you know, and what not to do from those things that where I felt like I missed it in my life, and I want to make sure that my kids, you know, don't have to go through that same kind of thing like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. You should always, you know, want better for your kids than
Absolutely.
what you had coming up. You shouldn't be a parent that, you know, almost that's in competition with your children.
Right.
You want them to do
Right.
better than you did.
Right.
No matter what it is, you know what I mean, at any point.
Yeah, and it's like we always talk about too, when we talk about legacy and you know, as men and as parents, but as men, as fathers, you know, we want to make those investments, those legacy type investments, and understand that I'm not necessarily going to be so greedy where I want to see everything in my lifetime.
Exactly.
But I want to make those investments for my kids and my kids' kids, et cetera, et cetera. And then just to take it even a step further, in, you know, the black community, we need to make those investments for the people in the culture to come after us.
Right.
And be willing to make those sacrifices and put in the work now, and it's going to reap the benefits, you know, on down the line. You know what I'm saying? So, so as we talk about this, like I said, I always appreciated, you know, just to give you your flowers, as we on the eve of Father's Day. I always appreciated those times when we were fishing. You know, that's one of the biggest things I always remember, is going out to the lake, and like we were talking about, even if we didn't catch anything, just the fact that we got that time in. And he would always, you know, it's corny, quote unquote, but he would, man, hey, even though we ain't catch no fish today, it was cool to hang out with, you know, a cool dude like you. And I mean, my cup was running over, you know, my cup was running over. And I can remember, y'all, two things I'll say, and just about, it's more than two things I could think of, but it's a number of things. But I can remember one time I had tried out for the basketball team in Cove, and I remember I was, you know, around the neighborhood running and doing all this kind of stuff, and you know, the basketball coaches know me, but I'm gonna go out there and try out or whatever. And you know, I was out there running the drills, and homies was like, "Man, I know you can hoop like that, man. You pretty decent." Da 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 da. And I remember the coach basically told me, like, "Yo, we need some more height on the team, bro. Like, you did good, but we need some height on the team." I was like, "Man, okay." And I was cool. Now, I wanted to hoop, I mean, because I liked playing, but, you know, my thing was more, you know, my thing was acting, you know what I mean, and doing theater and stuff like that. But I remember you wrote me a letter, because you was good at writing letters and notes and stuff like that, but you wrote me a letter encouraging me and, you know, telling me, hey, it's cool, and, you know, but, you know, even though you didn't make the team or whatever, these are the things that, you know, you're good at acting, and you encouraged me like that. Another time I remember is I was working in Round Rock, and I was in on a regular day, and you know, they basically called me down to HRA, and we decided to let you go. Da 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 da. So first thing I did is hit up Liz, and then I called you and Mom, and then we was on the phone, and you, I mean, again, just keeping me calm in that moment. 'Cause I'm like, man, I got no gig. Me and Skeens got this spot together, like, and you was like, man, the enemy is gonna make you feel like you might need to do some things outside of, you know, basically the norm to make it happen. But don't listen to that voice. And if you need something, I got you. Mm-hmm. And you, I mean, it's in that chaotic moment, I had just was driving away from the building. And then for you to put that in me in that moment, and, you know, a lot of people wonder, Jay, how do you stay calm when stuff is, and it was things like that that I pull from to stay calm, even when things is just going crazy and wild. So that's, I wanted to give you your flowers for that, man. But as we again want to give something to the fathers, you know, there's a lot of fathers that are maybe struggling in their marriage, or struggling in raising their kids, or you know, they feel like they just at a point where maybe, they are going to add to that statistic of a broken family. So what would you say to somebody that's struggling in those things, of how they can kind of press through and make it through those challenges like that?
Well, at this stage in my life, one of the things I'm always going to say is that, you're going to need Christ in your life.
Absolutely.
But then the other thing is, it's going to be, you mentioned, how you become a good communicator.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a hard time Barbara and I were going through in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be able to become a communicator, and you got to be able to become a good listener as part of communicating.
Boom. Yes, sir.
And I remember, and I thought about Bishop again. Bishop was the guy, as far as my Christian walk, where I got, I learned so much from him.
Mm-hmm.
But, he had a cliche about KYMS, keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. Yes, sir. Turn your
And
station.
me and Barbara was having some problems. We was in Germany, and we went into a room, and the Lord told me to turn my station to KYMS and just listen.
Mm.
And she talked to me about myself, and the Lord was like, listen to everything she say, and then we gonna go back over it, and I'm gonna tell you the things, that's on the money, right on target.
Right.
You go apologize for them, and then you work on them.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in other words, what I'm saying here is, a lot of time in marriage, when you get to that point to where it becomes a back and forth battle, and nobody's listening.
Nope.
I'm already, my defense mechanisms are up, and I'm just defending my position.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
And what God did with me during that time was saying, you listen. Don't defend anything right now. And then I'm going to tell you, okay, yeah, that's on the money.
Mm-hmm.
You need to apologize for that.
Yep.
You need to apologize for this.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key things. Because also, when you in that back and forth, all you do is you jump on Emerson Eggers, the book Love and Respect.
Yes, sir.
Gave you.
Love and Respect.
It talks about that you get on a wheel like a hamster,
Mm-hmm.
and you just going around and around and around,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point when you having that conflict in marriage, someone has to be the more mature one at that time to just step back and say, hey, we gonna shelve this for a minute till we cool down, calmer heads prevail, or whatever. But
Right.
you just can't sit back and it becomes I'm against you
Right.
and you against me, because you are supposed to be one unit with the same goal in mind. So answering your question is, learn how to listen and talk to one another, and understand that you all should have that same common goal, and that you are better together, and you're not against one another.
Right.
You're both for one another.
Mm-hmm.
And if you let calmer heads prevail, then that eliminates so many times that you have to apologize for saying something when you angry.
Yep.
And that you didn't really mean to say.
Right.
And that even brings me to, sometimes you can say what you something when you're angry that you really meant to say. You know what I mean? Again,
Yeah.
that like Bishop say, when the squeeze is on,
What's on the inside will come out.
Inside will come out.
Yep.
So that's one of the key things is learning how to communicate and learning how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Can you listen to what your spouse is saying and not be formulating your rebuttal?
Yep. Listen to understand.
Listen to understand.
Yeah.
Because we so often, when you're in the heat of a argument with your spouse, you already you really
You trying to win.
you're trying to win.
Yeah.
And so you're not listening. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things that God showed me way back then, and I've kind of exercised that. We used to have arguments still every now and then, but we hadn't had an argument in a
real
long
one,
time.
yeah.
A real argument in a long time.
They argue
now.
about sometimes, y'all, some of the dumbest stuff that I won't even talk about.
Now we're
Yeah.
getting into these little skirmishes, but
Yeah, it's not
they don't
really.
mean
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
They don't mean
not
nothing.
stuff that really count. You know. What I mean?
We'll finish that and she'll still kiss me on the lips and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, those are not anything.
Yeah, nah, that's good. So, I mean, as me and Skeens always talk about, y'all, in the relationship dynamic, whether it's marriage, whether it's children, whether it's work, it's communication is what we have to become professionals at and what we have to become good at. And communication is the key. Even in the stuff that we see going on right now, you know, in the country with, you know, law enforcement and stuff like that, communication is even key in that. Right. You know what I mean? We're going to talk about that in a upcoming episode, guys, but just a part of the repairing those wounds and a part of the reform that has to happen with law enforcement and us is a part of it has to is communication. But we'll touch on that. Now, I did have a quick thought. We'll get ready to close it out here in a second. Now, one of the things I always talk about in relationships and marriage is that you have, even as soon as you guys were together so early on, but you still have two different people, two different walks of life, raised a different way, life experience, you know, stuff like that. Now, I'm curious, what was if you could describe yourselves, what kind of guy were you and what kind of woman is she that, you know, maybe y'all was causing the friction to start? How would you just, because I know at one point you told me, and I'll give you something. You told me that early on in life, a part of, you know, you trying to figure out what is it to be a man and things of that nature, you was like, Jay, I used to think I had to just be hard. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I would mess with mom. I'd be like, man, you like a little feisty chicken. She's like, Sweet Pea, if I ain't get like that with your dad, he'll run you over. So is that accurate?
Well, I could say that may be accurate to a certain extent. I didn't feel like I felt like I was a little too, you know, I was soft. I was a pushover.
Y'all, my mom is off camera saying that is not true. Again, here we go with marriage. So what would you if you could put a point to what was the difference between you two that you had to reconcile, and maybe it was in communication style?
The communication style was big.
So what was your communication style?
I was more of a forceful, if she want to say hard, but I was more of a forceful communicator. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and I came now again when you know that goes back to where you're talking about points of reference of marriage.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I was kind of in that generation of seeing, you know, where men were like that.
Well, yeah, I know you told me,
you know,
you were like in that generation. You really didn't have guys even trying to come and really get with you on that level. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And this was a time, guys, when men worked, they gave the woman the money, and then they kind of did their own thing. You know, it was the woman's job to raise the kids and all that, which, again, I got to salute you because, you know, you invested so much in me, you know, that way. But that's because you made the decision to be different
from what you saw, what you were able to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to be different with that. And like you say, during that era, men worked, they paid the bills, they ran the street, did what they wanted to do. If they came home 3 o'clock in the morning, they would wake a wife up and say, look, fix me some food or whatever.
Right.
You know, that's the way they dealt, you know.
Right.
But, you know, in my generation, we knew that wasn't the way it was going to go.
Right.
You know? Right. But one thing I thought about, too, when you talk about making marriage last, is I've always, you know, thought of you guys, the youngsters that are behind us, that's kind of wind beneath our wings. And then I think we putting in the work, you know, it'll be more living versus just saying a certain thing. I'm talking about, I think about, you know how I tell you, I say, man, you and Dominic and Changa and Jaquise and Donnie and Changa, you know, I look at the example that we're living before you guys, you know, and we get strength from seeing the how strong you guys' marriage are. And we hope that a part of that comes from our marriage being as strong as it is, so really that gives us, it pushes me because I want to, I don't want to put an example out there before you guys that may be a negative thing that you don't draw strength from when you need it. I want you to be able to draw strength from seeing our marriage, so.
No, that's real. One of my friends, my mentor, Eric Young, always said, Jay, you got to think about something, man. If something happened with you and Liz, man, it ain't just you and Liz that it affect. It's your family, it's your friends, it's the little dudes that look up to you. And I'm like, oh, once he said that, you know what I'm saying? Right. And I try to live my life, to the best of my ability where I can be a positive example. And that's also a part of investment in legacy, you know what I'm saying, that we talk about. So, guys, I think we've had a good conversation. Do you have any parting shots? He was nervous, y'all.
That was my first interview.
Now, mind you, me and Scheme were trying to get this dude to do a phone because we got the setup to do it on the phone. He don't want to do that. Then he's coming in town. I don't want to be. Dude, can you come on and we want to have you as a fixture on the show, man. You the OG. You the elder statesman, man. This is an investment in legacy.
Investment in legacy.
Now, this dude can run his mouth. So, I mean, this is the thing that I'm like, why are you trying to be all shy? You would have, again, a funny story about my dad. We could be in the post exchange anywhere. And I don't know what it is about 86, but you can hear my dad, hey, man, what unit you was in 86, man? And he point like that. Hey, when he point at you, what unit you was? So, again, y'all, how did we get here? We're getting ready to sign off from my father, Jeffrey Lewis Carter Sr., Jeffrey Lewis Carter Jr., happy Father's Day out there to everyone. We want to send much love to all the dads and just the families. And, again, encourage you guys to stick and stay. You can do it. They did it. They, again, getting ready to hit 41 years in September. But even if your frame of reference, even if your upbringing wasn't the best, there's still enough in you for you to be successful in marriage and raising kids. And as fathers, for us to keep these families united, it's a must for us. We have to have united families to get to where we want to be as a culture and as a people. So I'm your boy, Jay Carter. My man Schemes, the man that's always heard and never seen, but not this episode. And we'll see you guys next time.